I don't think this region is as different as we all want to make it out. I mean, we're simply at a different point of the life cycle than some of the more mature markets. You look at BSkyB. When multi-channel television started in the United Kingdom in 1988, there were two competing platforms who slugged it out and fought each other to their knees for 2 years, and then they merged. Well, in this region, we had three competing platforms who slugged it out and fought each other to their knees for 15 years. Perhaps they should have merged 13 years before they did. I'm glad they didn't, because I got to come in to be the chief executive after the merger. But there isn't really that much of a difference in this market vis-a-vis other markets. Can there be a sustainable economic business model in this market? Absolutely. I have zero doubt about that. And we're already seeing it. We're a private company, and so thankfully at the moment I don't have to reveal our numbers, but we are very confident of the position, and we are already seeing the benefits of bringing together into traditional form, one consistent entertainment platform, which is all that's left. I think what has to happen to make that sustainable business model work in this region is there has to be a recognition of the delineation between content and platform. The United Kingdom didn't take off until there was one platform and 56 million TV households. So I believe the same is true here. And now that we have, I would say that, wouldn't I, the CEO of OSN, a strong, growing platform. I think some of the other content players have got to decide whether or not they want to be content on one platform or platform operators as well. But that by the very nature of commercial imperative. But to Karim's point, yes, when there is commercial imperative that is not required, and we've seen it in sports rights costs, we've seen it in other areas where you have sovereign-backed entities. We've got effectively not sovereign-backed, but certainly national money shareholders, and they desire to see a return on their investment. But that's very, very possible to do. Now, does that mean we have to restrict ourselves to the way we do business today? Absolutely not. What we need to do is to recognise that there is an expanding opportunity for distribution, and currently our predominant method of distribution is satellite, and IP through the cable operators, and the telco, sorry. Is there other ways of distributing our content? Absolutely. And we need to embrace those new technologies that allow us to broaden the experience. But I have zero doubt that there is a very viable, and we are actively engaged in, a very successful business model for running out television. But what we have to do is we have to make certain the content is such that people are prepared to pay for it, which means it has to be a premium. We have to make certain it's localised, which means we have to invest in original production, which we're now starting to do. And we have to recognise there are some idiosyncratic natures to this market, advertising being one of them, sports being one of them. That mean we have to do things slightly differently. But will we be successful? Absolutely.
I mean, sport obviously is a big thing, and perhaps Karim, you could take this on. Obviously, Abu Dhabi media surfed the wave of the EPL to launch a pay TV. Do you think that it is possible to develop that sort of model, a sustainable model, without sport?
I think you have to break down this question into the different components. The answer for pay TV is very different than the answer for free-to-air. And both markets suffer from the depressed advertising value of our region. There's a lot of reasons for that. I think probably everyone in the room has heard it 50 times before, so no need to go into it. Both markets suffer from a lack of measurement, which the UAE is leading in now with its People Meet project, and hopefully with Dr. Riyad's help in Saudi, we'll also have that happening there. So those will make changes. We have to grow. It's a very basic equation right now. The amount of money being spent on channels is much less than the entire advertising market that's out there. So for free-to-air, this is a huge challenge. I think the issue on pay TV is, and even if David does everything correct today in terms of his strategy and hits all his objectives, there's nothing in his plan that can stop another player tomorrow deciding whether it's Abu Dhabi or Jazeera or Player X, that they also want to have a pay TV entertainment platform, and they don't care how much it's going to cost. And maybe he has some exclusive contracts now, but when they're up for bidding again, they're suddenly going to blow his whole projections and business model out of the water. So he's back where he started. And this is the difficulty. The difficulty is if you're competing with players who have to compete for profit, it's a different set of assumptions and hurdles that might come up in front of you versus a market where you don't know what to expect. Now, in pay TV, if I could wave a magic wand, I would put us all on the same platform. And perhaps even OSN should split platform from content, and then maybe some of the players had to, by regulation in India, do so. And Jazeera and OSN and Abu Dhabi Media can all be sitting on one platform. For one thing, if we stop competing with each other on rights, we would actually save more money than we could possibly make from subscription levels in the next year or two. But eventually we will make up the difference. But right now, the biggest opportunity is in cutting cost that comes from irrational competition, in my opinion, on pay TV, as opposed to the incremental increases you're getting in subscription. That's on pay. On free-to-air, I think firstly we all have to be honest with ourselves as broadcasters and media companies why we're in the business. So if you're in the business because you want to make money, you should consistently behave accordingly. If you're in the business because you want to be a public service broadcaster, or it's a foreign policy decision, or it's you're somebody who's rich who wants to meet actresses, whatever, be honest about it. And then behave accordingly. There's no need to blow everyone else out of the water just because you felt like it one day. Minimize your losses. Get whatever you want to get out. If you're in public service, set some objectives for you about reach, about messaging, about targeting a specific community. So that's a big ask. I don't think anyone's going to get up tomorrow and be honest with themselves. The third thing, and I think this point was right, is satellite has been a great boon for us in terms of allowing a lot of broadcasters to exist today that probably would not have been able to exist before under very strict government controls in the terrestrial age. But at the same time, it's now become a mixed blessing because you cannot now separate markets. You cannot address them individually. There's far too much, even within our own region. Today, as a Gulf broadcaster, in Ramadan, I have to worry about Egyptian channels. It's fragmenting audience, it's fragmenting the advertising, it's not clarifying value, it's allowing our identity, not allowing us to have very clear identities. So the faster we move towards, again, single individually addressed markets, which could be something, ironically, that technology here will help us do. So if IPTV or cable in the UAE is very popular, it's a great thing for a broadcaster if you could address it. But right now, all you worry about, again, some honesty, and I think everyone in the room knows this, it doesn't matter how many people see you in UAE or in Qatar or in Kuwait. It matters how many people see you in Saudi if you want to make serious money. But that shouldn't be the case. Every one of those countries is a market in itself. So these are big things that need to change. Now, having said that, I think I promised Nick that I'd try to make this positive. It's hard, but it's possible. There's a lot of things, when people come in from abroad, I think our drama production in the region is not up to world class. Definitely not, because we can't afford to spend as much money on our episodes. But if you look at our entertainment programming, if you look at some of our news channels, I think there's a lot of good things that are happening. There's a lot of talented people who are delivering quality output and who are able to give something that can compete at an international standard, but there could be a lot more if all these other factors came in.
So how do we separate that, separate those markets? Is that something that Yarsad is doing?
Separating markets? Well, for the Middle East, the answer is no. We do have different beams. We have one for the eastern part of the Middle East, and one for the whole MENA region, and one for Europe. But for particular markets with spot beams for certain countries, no, we don't. Yeah. Okay. But what we do maybe slightly differently is that we are very, very focused, as I said, on HD and HD only. Given the fact of the capacity that we have, we can only carry quality and not quantity. We will never be the satellite with 600 channels due to the bandwidth requirement of each HD channel. So we will focus and select channels to an exclusive club of channels. So that will be also easier for the audience. As we know today from research in US, Europe, and the Middle East, that a particular household watch or an individual watch today between 5 to 7 channels, or there are other studies that says 7 to 10 channels. But so there's really no need. Although variety, and my channels are not the same as Nick's channels, and not the same Nick's channels are not the same as Irshad's channels, favorite channels. But 600, is it really needed? This comes back to Karim's point of actually making a viable business of these channels as well.
I mean, one of the another question that came up this morning, and this partly applies to satellites, partly applies to boxes and receivers, was the plethora of boxes, the plethora of platforms. You put another one in the market. Why?
Well, because the existing platforms that are available would not allow other conditional access to be accessed on them. So unless you have a box which can address common conditional access, there is always going to be a need for another conditional access. So if there's a box that can watch all the different conditional accesses, which allows different operators to operate on one box, then the solution was there. But nobody is able to do that. I don't know why.
Very simple, Paris. As soon as you make such a box, the entire economic model for pay TV goes out the window. And look exactly what happened in the pay TV market of this region up until the 19th of December last year. There was rampant piracy on dream boxes and rampant distribution of illegal reception. And everyone thought it was a wonderful wheeze because you could watch television for free. And if you allow the situation where conditional access can be compromised, and the reason why we unashamedly will not allow our product to go on another CA system is that it will get compromised, and that will kill our business model. So you need one secure platform. If nothing else, I've learned in the various multi-channel markets I've worked in around the world, B-Scope in Asia, if you provide the consumer with choice, with confusion, they will react by choosing to do nothing. And what you have to have is you have to have a single, strong platform. And once that happens, they will then choose to subscribe. So the plethora of platforms and the plethora of boxes, all that does is conspires to stop the market growing. And if you can reduce that, that's how the market will grow.
So how do we get to that point?
Well, let me add on that. Technosat has been in business for the past 18 years. Yeah, we're selling receivers, and what we've identified is that 95% of the boxes that were sold in the past 15, 17 years were free-to-air boxes. Yeah. Only 3-4% of the boxes that were sold were with conditional access. So, which means that there's a tremendous demand for free-to-air products. Now the concept which I would like to address here is in developing countries like India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, even where the disposable income is not as high as the Middle East, why does everyone have to pay over there? And why do people have to watch free-to-air TV here? So there is something going wrong for the past 15 years, and that's why we think that there was a low-pay platform required. Showtime and Orbit was in business for so many years. Then why were they not able to take a bigger market share of the boxes? Because we don't know. We know that there is 45 million receivers in the MENA region. Then we hear what are their subscription numbers. We hear Jazeera subscription numbers. We hear all the pay TV that exist here, the pay TV numbers. Why is that number so small? Whereas in India, whereas in the other developing countries, everybody has a receiver and a TV in their home, and there's no free TV.
Look, we shouldn't confuse ourselves. Pay TV and free TV coexist in every market. The idiosyncrasy of this region is that free TV is distributed via satellite in this region, whereas most other regions are not delivered via satellite. So the fact that there are so many satellite receivers, there's no question. As a pay TV platform, as a pay TV operator, we have to make our product compelling for someone to want to subscribe to. And the vast majority of viewing on satellite in this region will continue to be free. But there's no problem with that. The free model is an advertising-driven model. The pay model, in my wildest dreams, OSN will never raise more than about 8% of its revenue from advertising. B-Scope, advertising is not its second revenue stream, it's its third revenue stream. So we shouldn't delude ourselves that we're actually competing in the same space. We're not. Pay TV is about subscription, and it's about appealing to the consumer and convincing them that there is something worth paying for, and that's our job alone, and I'm not asking for anyone to help me do it. Free TV is about existing and chasing the advertising dollars, and to Kareem's absolutely valid point, there isn't enough advertising dollars in this market to pay for the 600 free-to-air channels. But that's as much to do with the corruption in the advertising markets as it is to do with the 600 free-to-air channels. But they are completely different business models. And free TV and pay TV in every part of the world will happily coexist.